Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. It's wonderful to have you here for episode 5 of our English with a Short Story series. If you're new here, we break down interesting stories to help you improve your English vocabulary, grammar, and listening skills in a fun and natural way. And for our returning subscribers, thank you for your continued support. Today we have a heartwarming story called The Lighthouse Keeper's Gift. It's a tale about an old man, a small coastal town, and a simple act of kindness that changes everything. As I read, try to relax and just listen to the flow of the story. Don't worry if you don't understand every single word. The goal is to get a feel for the language and enjoy the narrative. After the story, we'll go back and look at some key vocabulary and phrases together. Are you ready? Let's begin. The Lighthouse Keeper's Gift. For 50 years, Silas had been the keeper of the Port Haven Lighthouse. Perched on a craggy cliff overlooking the tempestuous sea, the lighthouse was his home, his companion, and his life's work. The town of Port Haven lay nestled in a quiet bay below, its residents familiar with the steady, sweeping beam of light that cut through the darkest nights and thickest fog. Silas was a solitary figure, known more by his light than by his face. His hair was as white as the sea foam, and his eyes held the deep, calm blue of the ocean on a summer's day. One autumn, a particularly harsh storm battered the coast. Waves crashed against the cliffs with monstrous force, and the wind howled like a mournful spirit. In the town, a young girl named Lily was worried. Her father, a fisherman, was still out at sea, caught in the storm. The whole town held its breath, their eyes fixed on the lighthouse, praying its light would guide the small boat home. Through the sheeting rain and raging wind, Silas kept the lamp burning bright. He knew the waters like the back of his hand and understood the terror the storm would inflict on any vessel caught in its grip. He polished the great lens, trimmed the wick, and ensured the beam was powerful and unwavering. It was a long, anxious night. Just as dawn was breaking, casting a pale, gray light over the churning water, a small boat was spotted, navigating the treacherous entrance to the bay. It was Lily's father, exhausted but safe. The town erupted in cheers of relief. They knew it was Silas's vigilant watch that had brought him home. A few days later, Lily climbed the winding path to the lighthouse, a small, carefully wrapped package in her hands. She was a little intimidated by the imposing tower and the reclusive man who lived there. She knocked tentatively on the heavy oak door. Silas opened it, surprised to see a visitor. He rarely had company. Lily, her cheeks flushed from the climb, held out the package. "This is for you, sir," she said softly. "My father. He came home because of your light." "Thank you." Silas took the gift, his weathered hands gentle. Inside was a hand-knitted scarf, the color of the deep blue sea he watched over every day. It was warm and soft. He looked at the small girl, a genuine smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. He had received official commendations and medals for his service, but this simple gift, an expression of pure gratitude, touched his heart more than any formal award ever could. "Thank you, little one," he said, his voice raspy from disuse. "It's beautiful." From that day on, Silas was no longer just the lighthouse keeper. He was Silas, the man who saved Lily's father. The townsfolk would often leave small tokens of appreciation at his door, a fresh loaf of bread, a jar of jam, a book to pass the time. The solitary lighthouse keeper had found a connection to the community he had protected from a distance for so long. And every time the wind grew cold, he would wrap the soft blue scarf around his neck. A constant reminder of the day a little girl's gratitude warmed his lonely world. What a lovely story, right? It really shows how a small gesture of kindness can make a huge difference. Now, let's dive into some of the wonderful vocabulary and expressions from the story. This is where we really start to learn. First, let's look at the word perched. The story says the lighthouse was perched on a craggy cliff. To be perched means to be sitting or resting on something high or narrow, like a bird on a branch. It gives us a great visual image of the lighthouse being right on the edge of the cliff, high above the sea. Another example could be the cat perched on the fence, watching the birds. Next, tempestuous. The cliff overlooked the tempestuous sea. This is a fantastic adjective. Tempestuous means characterized by strong and turbulent or conflicting emotion, but it can also describe weather that is very stormy. So a tempestuous sea is a wild, stormy, and violent sea. You could also talk about a tempestuous relationship if it's full of arguments and passion. We also have the word solitary. It says Silas was a solitary figure. Solitary means done or existing alone. It describes someone who spends a lot of time by themselves. It's not necessarily negative. Some people enjoy a solitary life. For example, writing is often a solitary activity. Let's talk about the phrase, like the back of his hand. The story says Silas knew the waters like the back of his hand. This is a very common idiom in English. If you know something like the back of your hand, it means you know it extremely well. You are very familiar with it. For example, I've lived in this city for 20 years, so I know it like the back of my hand. Another great word is vigilant. The town knew it was Silas's vigilant watch that brought the fishermen home. Vigilant means keeping careful watch for possible danger or difficulties. It implies being alert and watchful. A security guard needs to be vigilant. Parents are often vigilant when watching their young children at the park. How about intimidated? Lily was intimidated by the imposing tower. If you feel intimidated, you feel frightened or nervous because you are in a situation that you are not confident about. A large, powerful person or a huge, tall building can be intimidating. For example, the student was intimidated by the famous professor. And finally, let's look at reclusive. The story describes Silas as the reclusive man who lived there. A reclusive person is someone who avoids the company of other people. A person who lives in seclusion. It's similar to solitary, but reclusive often implies a stronger desire to be away from society. For instance, the famous author became reclusive later in life and rarely gave interviews. So, to recap, we learned: perched, resting on something high; tempestuous, very stormy or turbulent; solitary, alone; to know something like the back of your hand, to know it very well; vigilant, watchful and alert; intimidated, feeling nervous or frightened; and reclusive, avoiding the company of others. Try to use one or two of these words this week. Maybe you can write a sentence in the comments below using one of them. For example, you could write, "My cat perched on the windowsill all morning." I'd love to see your examples. I hope you enjoyed The Lighthouse Keeper's Gift and found the vocabulary breakdown helpful. The key to improving your English is consistent exposure and practice, and stories are such a powerful way to do that. Thank you so much for joining me today. Your time and attention mean the world to me. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next story. See you in the next video. Bye for now.